Hello and welcome to the 6th RentADefense devlog. I'm a game developer working on a game called RentADefense, a tower defense strategy game where you need to pay your tower's salary or else you have to lay them off. Without further ado, let's begin. In the previous devlog, I mentioned I had a few things I needed to finish up before I was ready to show off. I want to give the garbage truck a special ability when you fire it, but in order to do that I needed a way to fire/sell towers on demand. So I created a tower menu. It simply displays the tower stats and gives the option to sell or fire your tower depending on if it's a moneymaker or an attacking tower. The key difference being sold towers give back 70% of their price and fired towers give 30% of their salary. But for the sake of simplicity of the video, I will be referring to both as selling. It wasn't that hard to make and it looks pretty good for now, although it is flawed so adjustments will have to be made. Now that I've made it possible to sell towers, I started to make an on-sell effect for the garbage truck. I first created a new sprite and a sprite that looks really good in my opinion. Next, I implemented the effect, the Truck of Doom. It's best to just see it in action for yourself. Currently there isn't a way to aim the truck. It just goes what direction it happened to be facing, but eventually I'll allow the player to target it manually. After creating this, I've got to say it's the most fun I've had playing this game. Running over all the enemies is just really satisfying. Speaking of enemies, I've been meaning to update them for a while. I created a new sprite for the basic enemy which I think looks pretty good, especially compared to the old one which looked out of place. After adding in the new sprite, I made the enemy change direction when moving in another direction. Something worked first try, the game developer's dream. I couldn't do this before because the old sprite would have looked weird. Then I added a new enemy. It's got a lot more health than the first one, but is a little bit slower to balance it out. Next devlog I want to add at least one more enemy as well, but for now these two work well enough. I'm really glad I've made improvements on the enemies of the game since they were the most lacking part of the experience before these updates. In order to properly implement the new enemy, I had to improve my spawning system. Before, the old system was really limited in the fact that it could only spawn one enemy type at the same time, and I couldn't have enemies be set to be in the front of the wave or in the back of the wave. So after a while I created a new system. In non-programming terms, it works like this. The spawner is given some data which tells it which enemies and how many of each enemy to spawn on the current wave, and it gets broken down into three groups. The enemies in the very front, which no matter what spawn first, then the middle enemies, which can have a variety of enemy types spawn at the same time, and then the third group of enemies which absolutely must spawn last. I call it the sandwich method. The new system isn't completely finished because I need to phase out some old code, but it gets the job done well enough to make this video. Coming back to promises, I did say that the next agent I would create would be really cool, and I think I've lived up to that pretty well. So allow me to introduce you to Agent Yellow. Agent Yellow has a pretty unique and powerful effect. They show the player what enemies will appear next wave. By clicking on Agent Yellow, a small plaque appears, that's a tongue twister, that says what enemies are soon to come. To be honest, it's not entirely done, because it only shows some of the enemies, but between now and next devlog, I can quickly patch it up. Oh, yeah, I also did some minor balance changes, as you can see here. And that's what I did with my time in the past 2 weeks, excluding the time making this video. Thanks for watching, like and subscribe, and follow my Twitter if Twitter still exists. Watch the RentADefense playlist if you want more, and I'm out.